How can you prepare yourself and your sleep for the clocks changing ahead of time? So in this video, we're really going to look at a number of different steps that you can integrate ahead of time so that when you're changing the clocks, your body isn't going to be affected as much, and equally your sleep isn't going to be impacted as much. The steps I'm going to go through in today's video are steps that I still use myself. Even though I have already overcome my long-term insomnia, these are still helpful for me as well as we transitioning into this new part of the year. And I'm based in the UK, so we're transitioning into sort of the winter time. And these are still helpful for me as well. But one word of warning, what's important to bear in mind with all the things that I'm going to share with you in today's video is that they don't necessarily sort out the root cause of your insomnia or long-term sleep problems. They're still going to help to transition, but they're not going to sort out everything completely because that's not what they catered for. So if you're looking for other suggestions or advice, then you're very welcome to look at other videos that are posted previously. This video is very much about just that preparation for the clocks changing. So now that we covered that, I wanted to welcome you back if you're a member of my community already. If you are new, then let me just quickly introduce myself. My name is Beatrix Schmidt. I'm a sleep coach, professional speaker, and the creator of the Sleep Skills for Life program, which is very much my way of helping clients like you who struggle with long-term insomnia or sleep problems to finally overcome their struggles and develop what I call sleep skills so they can sleep consistently well for many years to come. If you're interested in sort of getting in touch or inquiring about any of those kind of services that I offer, you can find my website below. Other than that, don't forget to subscribe and hit that little bell so I can let you know when I post new videos, and also hit the like button below once you have watched the video and you liked what I shared with you. When we look at the clocks changing, this time of the year, the clocks are going back. So that means that instead of 7 o'clock, which is let's say 7 o'clock in the morning, it will be 6 o'clock in the morning once the time readjusts. If it's 7 o'clock in the evening, then it will readjust to 6 o'clock in the evening. Now, obviously, one of the main reasons we still do this is because we do end up getting a bit more light exposure towards the end of the day. It often does make a difference in terms of sleep dynamic as well, especially if you work in an office building where you might not actually be able to get outside as much during the day. So we still have that opportunity to get some natural daylight, but not all the time. So it really just, again, depends on your circumstances. Now, what I normally do, and I do this with my preparation as well, is 4 to 5 days before I start adjusting both my sleep time and my waking up time 15 minutes per day closer to the new time. So what do I mean by that? So normally I go to bed around 11 o'clock, which means I would start changing that by 15 minutes per day leading up to Saturday. Because that way, that 15-minute change per day is not really going to make a huge difference, but it's actually going to signal the body that you need to readjust. Now, what's important with this is you readjust both the morning and the evening, because that's really how you're going to shift your time frame that you've got and literally just shift it to the new time that is about to be used. If you tend to do it within a short period of time, then normally it just doesn't make a difference as much. This is what I've seen with my clients and with myself as well. So that's one of the first things, is really look back at 4 or 5 days before and you start using 15 minutes of readjustments. Obviously, depends when you're starting. There is no point starting it any earlier because then you're almost adjusting it too soon. And the body is completely capable of shifting your sleep and your sleep time over a couple of days. So that isn't going to cause any issues in terms of sort of falling asleep or waking up in the morning. Obviously, this is when your sleep is already somewhat improved. If you're still struggling a lot, then adjusting the time really isn't going to make much of a difference at all, but it will be important for your body and your mind to lean into that change. So then when we really look at readjusting these things, I look at 3 different types of preparations. And this is very much the core of all of my work when I work with clients and going through changes, going through actually helping them to overcome insomnia and sleep problems. So the first part is the physical preparation. Now, adjusting the time, adjusting your sleep time is already a physical preparation, but I add a few other things so that really we can add to that support system. So the next thing I normally look at as physical preparation is really acknowledging how your eating and drinking habits are. This time of the year, especially in the UK, where the weather is getting cooler, the day is getting darker, and often we start to have more consistent rain, your body needs to generate more heat even in order to be able to keep you warm. So what's important is to start really looking at your eating and drinking habits, because it will then support you basically being able to be in a much healthier place. It helps with sleep, it helps with energy levels. And what I normally suggest is having smaller meals, but more frequently. That's really going to be a good way for the body and the mind to integrate all the things that you're eating. And obviously, please eat healthier rather than just snacking, because snacking isn't necessarily going to give you that sustainable energy, but it really will help you to have more energy. And this will then turn into being able to be sort of healthier throughout this time. This is especially a time when people get colds, coughs, things like that, mostly because we are transitioning and we might not have had that support system in place already. So drinking enough water, making sure that you're not eating too late, and you distribute your meals across the day is a really helpful way to support the body through this transition as well. Then the next thing is natural light exposure is going to change. As the evenings are getting darker, and if you especially work in a building and you don't really get to maybe spend enough time outside, not dimming lights in the evening at home is going to add to not being able to feel sleepy so early. So again, this is where darker evenings, dimmer lights can actually trigger that transitioning to sleep process much earlier and can confuse the body and the mind of when you're supposed to be falling asleep. So again, this is one of the things that I see all the time, especially this time of the year, where we might have come in from somewhere we've been out, it's already dark, but maybe we are not turning enough lights on. So light exposure is a really good way to really help our body and your mind to readjust in a different way. As the evening's getting darker, I would definitely suggest really becoming very aware of that light exposure. Natural light exposure is the best, even if the weather is raining outside or it might be grey. Natural light exposure is still better than any other. It's just got a different way of sort of supporting our body. Then the other thing that's connected to light exposure is vitamin D. Now, I'm not a nutritionist fully, but I do look at some of these signs that we're seeing. So vitamin D deficiency is one of the things that actually shows up in the UK quite often naturally, because we don't get a lot of sunshine and a lot of sort of times that as even in the summer. So one of the things that is linked to tiredness is vitamin D deficiency. It's only one of those, but this time of the year, again, it's one of those things that's worth bearing in mind and just seeing whether or not you can benefit from it. It also links back to eating and drinking habits as well. Just making sure that your body is supported properly during this time. Then the third one here that often tends to change is, again, exercise. When it gets darker, when it gets even sort of more rainy, especially, for example, in the UK, a lot of the times what it impacts as well is how much we spend outside exercising. During the summertime, you might be walking more outside because it is nicer and obviously you enjoy maybe walking from work and so on. This time of the year is when we tend to just want to really just get home. So exercise is again a great way to rebalance the body. It doesn't have to be intense exercise, it can just be walking, but still make sure that you're not skipping it all the time. And again, it's about balance. So make sure that you do some version of exercise every single day, because again, it's going to help the body and the mind to go through this transition in a different way. Then we go into emotional preparation. Now, especially this time of the year, a lot of the emotions can change as well. Again, as I live in the UK, and for example, the rain is coming, and we know that there's going to be rain coming, and it's more grey, less sunlight. Emotions can change, and we become often a bit more negative. So, and that's natural, because as your light exposure changes, as it gets cooler, the body will readjust those emotions as well. But what's really important is that you become aware of them. This time of the year, especially, a lot of the times people don't even realize that there has been more negative emotions rising, and they're not able to catch it ahead of time. So again, as we prepare for the clocks changing and heading into the next part of the year, have a little check with yourself and say, right, okay, how am I feeling? Not just how physically I am. How am I feeling? What are maybe some of those emotions that I'm feeling more of? And maybe those are more negative ones. Again, everybody's in a different place. But really actually understanding where you're at is going to help you to put things in place so that you can actually balance them out. So one of the examples from me is this time of the year, I actually don't get quite negative about it. I like autumn. I like the weather changing and the leaves, colors changing and so on. But it does get more rainy. And that's often the one that actually really changes my emotions, for example, because I might not feel like I want to go outside as much or exercise as much and so on. But it's about supporting yourself. This is not about guilt tripping in any way just because you feel emotions. It's about actually really understanding what emotions you're feeling. And as I mentioned in the next step, actually supporting yourself through it. So the next part of this preparation is really understanding whether or not you have enough time to do things that you enjoy. These can be hobbies and passions. Naturally, this time of the year, when you might have become a bit more tired and maybe become a bit more busy, or maybe there's certain pressures either at work or in lifestyle, depending on what kind of lifestyle you have, often we actually have less time to feel positive emotions. And this is why acknowledging the negative ones, but also acknowledging what we might not be doing to bring positive emotions is going to help you to really rebalance things. So really think about, do you have enough time to maybe follow some of your passions or make time for some of those hobbies? And even if those hobbies are outside hobbies, do you still have a way to do them and do them enough so that it can bring you positive emotions? So again, it's a very simple way to rebalance the emotions across this time of the year, and obviously heading into the winter as well. And then the other thing that emotionally links to this as well is not feeling like you are satisfied. So this is again often the time when we have more conversations about, oh, the holiday I had, or, I wish I was maybe being able to go away somewhere, or just generally feeling a little bit less satisfied. Now, this can be very normal just from feeling a bit more tired. It doesn't have to be extreme tiredness, but it can just be a version of tiredness. That naturally brings our emotions down, which then can affect this feeling of satisfaction. This is why I started this part with looking at the negative emotions you're feeling and looking at how you can create positive ones. Because not feeling satisfied is linked to both. Not feeling satisfied whether or not you feel like you haven't done as much as you wanted, or maybe you haven't had an opportunity to do or finish up a few things. Not feeling satisfied is going to come into that picture. But what's important, again, is to look at rebalancing things and really proactively looking at those emotions that show up. Then the third one is what I call the mental preparation. Again, all physical, mental, and emotional preparation linked to each other. And often the mental one is the one that is actually really can make a huge difference this time of the year. So the first one is almost links back to the previous point I mentioned. So this lack of motivation, again, I hear it quite a lot during this time, generally speaking anyway, and I feel it too. So again, this is something that I go through as well. That lack of motivation, that either continuing something as a hobby or making sure that you're doing the exercise when perhaps it is not so nice outside, or it's dark and it's cold and it's rainy, especially in the UK, for example. So this lack of motivation often starts in the morning. So what you can do about it is you start your morning in a good way. And this already comes back to some of the previous points I mentioned. So when you readjust your sleep time, for example, you're going to be able to use your mornings more appropriately because you're really preparing. Your body isn't just going to get a sudden shock of that clock's changing. So really looking at your morning and how you can create a better morning routine. You can call it a routine. So for example, one of the things I do at this time of the year is I have a Lumi clock, which is basically a sunrise clock. So again, this combines some of the points I mentioned earlier, but also it makes sure that I am actually awake at the time that I need to be. So as I readjust my sleep, I also sometimes struggle with it a bit more. So naturally, my body needs that support so that I can actually get going. So that morning clock and that morning alarm and the lightness and the brightness in the morning can actually really create that sort of feeling of I'm ready for the day. That more motivating feeling rather than waking up in the dark and being scared out of sleep. So that can really start the day on a different note. And again, looking at sort of doing things that are nice, whether or not, for example, I sometimes listen to music that I like, or maybe I will make a cup of tea, my favorite cup of tea, rather than my normal cup of tea. All of those different senses, the 5 senses in the morning, can really help you to sort of not be stuck in that lack of motivation. Then the next one is this tiredness that's more mental tiredness. Now, sometimes this can actually come from, because it's darker, we often actually tend to slouch. So again, it comes from a physical part first. We might slouch. We might start sort of tensing up muscles where we shouldn't. And this can actually lead to mental tiredness as well. The other thing that can also lead to mental tiredness is all of those steps I mentioned before. You know, not having the energy, not maybe feeling nourished in your body physically or even emotionally. All of those can turn into mental tiredness as well. Simply because you are pushing more in order to get the same things done. Readjusting, whether or not that's jet lag or this time of the year, requires the body and the mind to really use amounts of energy to create that new situation. So again, mental tiredness can be very normal this time of the year. And then the third part here is really looking at how much pressure you put on yourself. So this time of the year, if you're already maybe feeling a bit more tired or you might have more negative emotions, that can actually really turn into putting too much pressure on yourself. So the opposite of that is, why not having a look at your diary, and I do this as well, and just rebalance things. Instead of maybe packing it in too much, you give yourself a few more breaks. As you go through that transition and the tiredness goes away and you become more energized, then you can actually really end up doing more. But it's important to become aware of what your limitations are and taking it a bit easier. Even if it's just 10% easier, that's going to make a world of difference in terms of not putting so much pressure on yourself to do more and be more, and even just sort of produce more, whatever that produce is for you. So these are the different ways that I actually really prepare myself for the clocks changing as well. These are very effective. These are just a small number of things. So obviously these are the main things that I normally do, but within the work that I do with clients, we actually cover a lot of different things that help to really improve this time of the year. and also overcome sleep problems and insomnia. Now that we've gone through all the different steps that I integrate so that I can help myself through this transition, it's over to you. Which one or maybe two you're going to start working on? And feel free to come and pop that into the comment box or reach out and let me know. I always like to hear what action steps you are taking and what results you are getting. So feel free to share your journey with me as well. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button below, hit that little bell as well so I can let you know when I post new videos. And obviously hit that like button below if you have liked what I shared with you today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video.